Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me share a quote with you. The great Les Brown once said, "You can't see the picture when you're in the frame." If you've felt stuck in your fitness, mindset, or life as a whole, head down to the link in the show notes and reach out to learn more about Project Endure Coaching so that we can help you step outside of the frame and bridge the gap between who you are now and who you want to be. We can't wait to hear from you. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 176. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and in Florida, we have a very, very special guest, Justin Sua. Justin, how are you?
I'm doing great, Joe. Thanks for having me. 176?
Yes, sir.
That's incredible. Yeah. That's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you. That does not compare to your 2051, I believe, podcast episodes, correct?
It is correct, but completely different format. But yeah, 171's amazing.
Thank you. It means a lot. And we'll dive into the topic of consistency, which is something that you do very well and something that I care about. But before we go there, for people listening who don't know who you are, how would you introduce yourself?
I'm a husband and a father of 3 children, and we live in Florida. Professionally, what I love to serve, I love to help, and I'm fascinated with the best in the world. I just am drawn to those who are really good at what they do in sports, in business, in music, in dancing, whatever it may be. And so my job is to I'm the founder of a company called the Performance Advisory Group, and our tagline is accelerating excellence. And so essentially, it's a group of us to try to help people who are on their path to greatness just speed the process up a little bit. They're already really good at what they do. And so principles that help them become optimal decision makers, a little mental skills in there, a little relationship principles in there, culture design, environmental design. And so we work with at professional sports teams and coaches.
Amazing. And so one of the reasons I've been wanting to have you on for a while is because of your expertise, I'll call it. I don't know if you would call it that, but in the areas of mental skills and performance and controlling the controllables, if you will. Yeah. I think that's something that is very powerful and that everyone could use more of. And so with that being said, when in your life did you notice that you had this affinity for high performance?
I think I noticed it young. So my father, he played professional baseball, and then he went into they had a company. He's an entrepreneur, him and my mom. But growing up in the Sua home, just the standards are really high. Do the best you can to get good grades. We weren't brilliant, but we worked hard to get good grades. I noticed that school came really easy to a lot of people, a lot of my friends. I had to grind to kind of keep up with them. And then even sports, even baseball, having a chance to play Division I college sports and being an All-American, I didn't throw the hardest. I didn't run the fastest. I wasn't the strongest. I wasn't didn't have the best pitches but on the team, but just kind of found a way to compete and to win. And I noticed a lot of the intangibles there. And then just reading books and coming across different people and just being inspired by people who are pursuing greatness. And I just noticed that I really enjoyed that from a young age.
One of the things that I admire about high performers, and I think sports is a great example because it's visual and quantifiable, but it takes a lot of hard work to make things look easy. And, the guy who can, hit the home run, or the guy who can catch that pass or shoot the shot or whatever it is, right? They've practiced it thousands and thousands, tens or hundreds of thousands of times to make it look like it's easy. What's one thing in your life that people assume is easy for you, but you've had to work really, really, really hard at?
That's a really good question. I think communication and just my ability to tell stories and connect with people, that takes and took a lot of time. I work on it every single day. And I think it came so from 19 to 21, I lived in Nicaragua. I was a missionary, and what they do is they throw you into a country, and I didn't know how to speak the language. And when I was there, when you're learning a new language in a new country and no one's around you to teach you, you learn the very basics of a language, the just the basic words, basic sentence structure. And because I didn't have this robust vocabulary, I had to keep it very simple. And I learned a lot about how to be efficient with my words. Another thing is growing up, my parents, the Polynesian culture is a storytelling culture. And so whenever we'd eat as a family, dad and mom would tell stories. And I was just captivated by the way they told stories. And then I started telling stories. And then when I got my bachelor's degree was in broadcast journalism. And when broadcast journalism, essentially, it's like, okay, tell the whole Super Bowl story in 45 seconds. And you have to get really good and become very efficient with your words. And I think that's something that people underestimate how long I've been working on that. How I've been honing that. Even the podcast, I'll say that my Increase Your Impact podcast, it's 1 to 3 minutes long. I can speak for 30 minutes on each topic, but you got to keep it succinct, got to keep it tight, and maintain the integrity of the message. And so that's something that I think a lot of people underestimate. They just think, oh, you can just speak. It's like, ooh, it's taken years, 43 years of experience and practicing on doing that.
Wow. So, since you mentioned the podcast, I would love to know why and when that started for you. And, I haven't gone back and listened to the first episode, but I can speak from personal experience. I can listen back to the first episode of this podcast, which was recorded 3 years ago, 3 or so years ago. And I remember sitting under a blanket in my old apartment for acoustics because the wood was just open, the room was open and full of wood. So I was covered in a blanket, sweating because it was the summer, just recording over and over and over again because I just kept messing up, kept messing up. And I listen back now, and it's amazing how much I've improved as a podcast host and communicator. But I would imagine for you, it's crazy to look back 2,000 plus episodes. Why did you start it?
I love this question. And I think it correlates with my initial answer when you asked me to describe myself. I talked about being a husband and a father. That is my family and families is the most important thing to me. And our motto and our mantra is a win at home. If it doesn't matter if you're winning anywhere else, you win at home. And that's the most important thing. And so what was happening is when I was during my time with the Boston Red Sox, I would get a lot of people sliding into my DMs, parents asking me to help their child, dads asking me for advice on to help their daughter. And it was breaking my heart because as you and I discussed, I want to serve, I want to help as many people as I possibly can, but I don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the time to do so. And quite frankly, these families couldn't pay the money. I just did. It just wasn't. It just couldn't happen. And so I decided, you know what? I really care about families. I really care about these parents and about the youth, the amateur kids, the amateur athletes. Let me provide a free resource for them. Let me share everything that I'm sharing with the best athletes and coaches in the world. Everything. No, nothing hidden. I'm going to give it to them for free for as long as I possibly can. There's no, I'm not going to have you sign up for anything. I'm not going to ask you for money. I'm not going to, here it is for free forever. You can listen to it whenever you want. And so it was in hopes to help families and in hopes to help parents to give people the same access as the best athletes in the world have, that they can have it and they can listen to it for free.
That's so special and very admirable. And I think it ties into what I was sharing with you before we hit record, which was back in 2019, in February 2019, I was finishing up graduate school and I was on this journey creating my social media platform. And really diving more into the world of online coaching. I was getting my degree in physical therapy. And so this world of fitness, health, wellness, wanting to serve and help people. And I came across you somehow through social media, and I just felt called to reach out, and I had some questions. And so I sent you a DM, and to my surprise, you responded and you said, "What's your phone number?" You called me. I missed the call. I called you back. We connected for 15, 20 minutes, and you might not have thought much of it, but it meant the world to me. And I think that speaks to you wanting to serve and just do good. And, here we are, I guess 5 years later, recording a podcast, and it's taken a couple tries and some, planning and scheduling, but we're making it happen. And so my hope for this episode is that people can tap into some of your wisdom and then go to your podcast, go to your page and learn even more.
Awesome.
So with that being said, I have an analogy that you put out. I'm not sure if it was on your podcast or YouTube that I want to kick things off with here. It was the monkey and the bulldog. Do you remember what you had said about the monkey and the bulldog, or that story?
I remember I have a couple of different analogies of each one, which I know the bulldog remind me of the
Yeah,
monkey.
it was the same episode. So it was about holding on and letting go.
Yes, yes,
And
yes. Okay.
yeah,
Yep.
so if you want to share that a little bit, I think the audience would enjoy it, and I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah. And so there are two, I love the lessons that we learn from the animal kingdom. I love using them because it's just so pure and so real, and we could connect to them. Now, all analogies have limitations and are not apples to apples when we come to human behavior, but the monkey one is fascinating. I learned that the Bushmen in Africa, so Bushmen are African natives, and they would, when they go looking for water, they would use monkeys, and they'd have to catch these monkeys, but they couldn't hurt them. And so there's YouTube videos. If you literally go look, type in Bushman monkey catching monkeys, you'll see an amazing video where a Bushman will go and he'll carve a hole into a tree, and he'll put a monkey's favorite treat inside of this little hole. And in the video, you see the monkeys looking at the Bushmen. You'll see them leave their favorite berries. The man goes away and he just sits and he watches. And the monkeys walk up and they're very curious. They smell and they're like, "Oh, there's my favorite treat." They'll put their hand in the little hole and they'll grip it, and then they go to pull it out, but they can't pull their hand out because now their fist is too big with their favorite treat inside of their hand. And it shows them just pulling as hard as they can, and they're going crazy. They're trying to let go, they're trying to release themselves. And as they're holding on, the bushman calmly and quietly walks up. The monkey sees the bushman coming and they're going crazy. And the bushman comes, ties a little rope around his little body. The monkey finally lets go, holds its hand out, and now it's held captive and is used to lead the bushman to water. Now, the analogy, when I'm watching this video, I'm thinking to myself, let go, monkey, let go. Just, you're trapping yourself. Just let it go and go be free. And that's the analogy. The analogy is we are like that monkey sometimes, holding on and being trapped by our expectations, holding on to, it could be holding on to an expectation. We could be holding on to an incentive, holding on to something we can't control. And we're getting so frustrated with the situation, but all we're doing is self-handicapping. We're doing it to ourselves when we just need to literally tell ourselves what we're telling these monkeys, let go, let go. And the question becomes to all of us, what do you need to let go on? What are you holding on to that's actually holding you back? And some of these things we need to let go of are beliefs that we were taught when we were young, beliefs that our industry has that maybe everyone believes it, but maybe that doesn't work for you. Or maybe you have a different belief. There was a gentleman who said, I love this phrase. He goes, beliefs are hypotheses to be tested, not treasures to be guarded. And like that monkey, sometimes we're holding on to things we once believed to be true, but may no longer be true. And it's causing us more harm than good and impeding our progression. So
That's
that's the monkey one.
That's so powerful and so applicable. And I would encourage everyone listening, pause this for however long you need and think about that question. What do you need to let go of? because I would imagine we all have at least something. And so now I'll let you talk about the bulldog, which is the opposite.
Yeah. So one day we had a dog specialist come speak to us, and he put up on the board a picture of a bulldog, and he asked the team, "Hey, what is this? What is this back in the days, what was this animal used to herd? What was this bulldog used to herd?" And everyone raised their hands and they're like, sheep. And it's like, no, bulls, obviously. So it's used to herd bulls. And he goes on to tell a story how they were used. So the bull herder has a tremendous job to take a number of bulls and to herd them to a location very far away. Now, occasionally you would get the stubborn bull, the bull that would fall to the ground. The bull herder would come with his long stick and start poking the bull and say, "Hey, yeah, just try to poke it." Now, as a human, this bull herder knows I'm not going to irritate it and agitate it too much because it'll rip me to shreds. Let me sick my dog on it. Now that's when the bulldog came in. The bulldog would walk in and walk right up to the stubborn bull's face, who's laying on the ground and staring at this tiny little ugly bulldog. And the bulldog would start barking at the bull, chirping out the command, essentially saying, you better get up, or we're going to have some problems. Now, the bull, being much bigger, isn't afraid of the bulldog. Also, doesn't speak bulldog. It just hears a bunch of little yapping coming at it. And so it doesn't listen. And because it doesn't listen, the bulldog then goes into phase two of its process. It jumps up and it crushes the bull's face. Now the bulldog has the bull's attention. The bull stands up and has this little bulldog dangling from its face. And to rid itself of the excruciating pain, it starts slamming the bulldog on the ground, against trees, against rocks, over and over again. The bulldog takes an absolute beating, but does not let go until finally the bull can't take it anymore, falls to the ground. After then, only after that, does the bulldog release the bull, backs up, and starts barking again. You better get up, or we're going to dance like that again. This is after taking a beating. It's willing to dance like that again. Now the bull speaks bulldog, stands up, and follows that little bulldog wherever it goes. Now, the analogy behind that one is there are things that you need to be ruthless with. There are going to be certain things in our lives that you need to hold on to despite the beating that you're going to take, in spite of the adversity you're going to face, the turbulence that's going to hit you. It matters so much that you hold on to it to weather this storm, to know that I'm not letting go no matter how many punches I'm going to take, because I know what's going to happen on the other end is going to be better than it's going to be worth it, all the beating that I'm taking. And so this analogy is almost completely opposite of the other one. It's the other side of the pendulum where the question is, what matters so much to you? And what do you care about so much that you're willing to take a beating in order to achieve it? There's that common quote, what would you achieve if you knew you could not fail? Or what would you do if you knew you could not fail? I love an even better question, and not necessarily a better question, but a different way to ask that question is, what would you pursue if you knew failing was inevitable? If the odds of failure were in the 90 percentile, 90% range, what would you still do? Because you, gosh darn it, you love it so much. And that holds true for a great example I'll give you is my daughter. My daughter is an actor, and she wanted to be an actor since she was a young little girl. And I'm a probabilistic guy. I understand probability. And now, mind you, I'm in an industry where the best athletes in the world, the odds were against all of them. Every single one of them in the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, they overcame unbelievable odds and probabilities to get where they are. Now, I told my daughter, I said, what do you think the chances are that you're going to land a role on the big screen? And she goes, probably 3%. I'm like, it's probably less than 0.5%. Like it's not even close. The odds are you're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. But do you love it anyway? Are you willing to do it anyway? She goes, yes, Daddy. I love this. I love this. I want to do it so bad. And so she gets after it. She works hard for years. And wouldn't you know it, she played the Rock's daughter in Hobbs and Shaw, and she has her
Whoa.
own TV show on the Disney Channel. And when she know, yes, she knew the odds were against her. This wasn't would beyond her wildest dreams, but she went after it, and now she's making a career out of herself at 16 years old.
Wow. You must be so
Yes,
proud.
absolutely, absolutely. And so talk about the bulldog mindset. And there have been some ups and downs, but he loves it. And so it goes, I'll ask that question again. What is something that you would do uh, knowing that failure is inevitable? The odds are
Mm.
going to fail. You are going to fail. The odds are stacked against you. What do you still want to do because you love doing that thing? And that's when you know that's going to help you with that bulldog mentality.
So I would imagine there are people listening to this right now who are saying, I don't know what my passion is. I don't know what I love yet. And at the same time, I feel a little bit stuck and I don't know if I should let go or hang on. And I'm in this middle ground and I don't know how to figure that out. I'm not sure if there's a great answer, but what would you say to someone who is not sure if they should hold on or let go of whatever that thing is in their life?
First thing I'd say is that's totally normal. I think sometimes I'd remind you to run your own race. Run your own race. There are a lot of great things about social media, but some of the frustrating things about social media is we eyeball other people running their race, and we can think that there's a shot clock on our life. I have to be this age to achieve this. I have to be this age to achieve that. We see people who maybe we see that with perceived success, and we start thinking, oh, I need to do that, or I'm bad, I have to have it all figured out. Some of my favorite stories are people who succeeded much later in life, and just to know that there is no cookie cutter unfolding of how things play out. You can be as old or as young, and what somebody else does might not be what you do, and how fast somebody gets there might not be as fast. You might be a late bloomer, and that's okay. And so I think run your own race and turn off the shot clock. Number one, like you said, turn off the shot clock. You don't have to get there by a certain point. Number two is do your what works best for you. Those are two common principles. Another principle I would identify is now you want to collect clues. You want to start to run little experiments on your life. What makes you happy? What do you find yourself? Where do you spend your time? I would consider the four finite resources: time, energy, attention, and money. Where are you spending your time? What gives you energy and what saps your energy? What are you focused on? What do you think about often besides doom and gloom stuff like, oh, woe is me? But like, well, where do you find yourself grab your attention gravitating towards? And what do you spend your money on? Like, what do you spend your money on? That all of those, if you follow those four things, you might start to have some clues on on kind of what you enjoy. What I love about 2024 is you can be a creator, you can start things, you can dabble in certain things. And another thing as well is you don't have to achieve all these things immediately. I remember when I first started, I had like four jobs. Like I remember I was 20, I was in my early 20s, married with three kids under three. And I'm broke, we're broke. And I remember going to an ATM and seeing that I had single digits, maybe under $15. I think it was under $15 in my savings and checking account, both of them with the wife and three kids in diapers. And I remember just getting emotional and crying. And I'm not much of an emotional guy, but just thinking how much of a failure I was. I was doing MLM stuff. I was a high school teacher. I was coaching baseball. I was anything I could to make a few bucks. And it was crazy. If somebody would have told me, hey, in 20 years, you're going to be doing this, I would have said, there's no way. There's no way that. And so to understand that, just let the game play out, and don't let. Another thing I'll say is I was never flipping burgers was never below me. Like it was never below me. I will flip burgers to put a roof over my head and food on the table. And then I'll go work my tail off on the side hustle. I will drive trash trucks. Like it doesn't matter. I need to sustain my life and get the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, get take care of my family, electricity, and I'm going to go and do my side hustle. And so that's when I got into performance coaching. I had a number of other jobs. And with the very little time that I had, once the kids were in bed, and I maybe it was like 30 minutes a day, and then 30 minutes turned into an hour a day turned in up into the wee hours of the morning because I was passionate about it. And then just kept growing and growing and growing. And then yeah, 20 years or so, here we are now.
I love the phrase little by little, little becomes a lot. And I think it's hard sometimes to zoom out and look at how the dots might connect going forward or how the consistency might compound going forward when you look forward 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, because the reality is we're here right now. And so I wonder if you have any guidance for people who want to enjoy the moment, be present, and also are working hard, grinding for the future. How do you navigate the relationship between here and now and this hasn't happened yet?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I don't know if there's like a perfect principle or recipe or tool for that. And I will say, there's a lot of people who are like, be present, be present. And in certain moments, yes. There are also moments you need to completely disassociate. There are some people who are like, the present is the worst place to be. Like those who are like suffering, especially in pain. So you need to take your mind to the past or to the future, and where the last place you want to be is in the here and now. You want to take your mind to a happy place wherever it may be. And so a couple of things, really training our brains to be, it is a time machine. So our brain has the ability, our minds have the ability to go to the past or go to the future. You can jump into that time machine and just go there. And when you go there, you're going to bring with it the emotions, the thoughts, the physiology is going to affect your body that go with it. And so what I would do is I would do a couple of things. If you find yourself struggling right now and you're not quite sure where it's going to lead and you're struggling right now, I would ask myself a couple of questions. How can this situation, how is this situation making me stronger? What am I learning from this situation? Another one could be, what am I going to I get this all the time where people tell me how difficult their situation is. And then after listening to it, showing empathy, of course, and sympathy, of course, my next question is, what are you going to do about it? Like, what are you going to do about it? Now, what that activates is the prefrontal cortex. So you're more of a decision maker at that moment. Now you're thinking, okay, you're focused on taking action and not focused on you're focused on what you're going to do to life, not what life is doing to you. And I think that's a very powerful question. Another question to ask yourself as well to account for the future is to ask yourself, do you fast forward to 2 years, 3 years, and then you ask yourself, what do I not want to regret in 2 years? Or you could even be in 1 year. It could be in 2 months. What do I, you go back and you write down the November 22nd, 2025 version of you, and you say, what do I not want that Joe to regret? I don't want that guy to regret. And so it's a simple tool called regret minimization. And you just do everything you can to minimize regrets. Another thing you can do is called the pre-mortem. It's a mental model used in businesses where you fast forward and you imagine your life is terrible in a year, just absolutely terrible in every aspect. And then you think to yourself, why? Why would my life be terrible based on what I know about me? Now, a lot of times you want to attach it to a specific goal. Let's say your goal is something in fitness. And let's say by November of next year, you don't hit your goals. You just don't hit it. And then you say, why? Why is that? Grab your journal and then you write all the reasons why you think you failed or you would fail. And when you're done, you'll have a list of things that you either need to be ready for that are you just need to account for. You have no control over it, but account for it. And then you have some things that you need to absolutely avoid. You can avoid these things. And it just opens your eyes to seeing obstacles that may perhaps get in your way. And so these are some little exercises that you can do to account for your future self, to construct the best version of yourself. Um, yeah, so some of those might be helpful for somebody.
Yeah, that is very helpful. And so you alluded to some things that you could, think about looking forward. I would love to ask you about yourself looking backward. And so I ask this question to every guest, and it's a big one, it's a deep one. So feel free to pause for a second and think about it. But when you look back at your life to this point, what's the hardest thing that you've ever had to handle that you did not get to choose for yourself?
Oh, that's easy. So I've been married for 20 years, and we have three great kids, 17, 16, 15-year-old children. And my wife, one day she was boxing. She was a boxing instructor. She wrote children's books. She would run triathlons and marathons and go serve kids and their families, like very active. And one day she was boxing. She was teaching a boxing class to women, and her knuckle jammed, and it just didn't heal. And we're like, that's weird. And then she started having more pain, and then more pain. This all of her joints. And then it got to the point where to fast forward through the process, where she couldn't walk. It paralyzed her essentially. And we have three kids, and now she can't dress herself. She can't comb her hair. She can't. It completely changed our lives, to the point to where it just, let's just say, it took her to some very, very dark places that causes one to do irreparable damage that will alter the course of our entire family's life. And so that was absolutely the hardest, when your best friend and your wife can no longer walk and is in a wheelchair, and just everything is just taken away, and you don't have the money to provide uh, the medication that's necessary and that's needed. And so yeah, and so to be so sick that you can't drive your kids to school, and they have to, and then I'm gone working, and to just where she can't even put the blanket over her at night, and just sobbing and crying. And so that was definitely the worst thing that we went through, that I had no control over.
Before I ask how that impacted you and how you felt through that and how you dealt with that, how does that story unfold going forward until today from that point? Is she
Yeah.
better?
Yeah, and so it's not perfect. She still has, but miracle is like the word that doctors, that people are saying. They're just like, this is, the odds were, there's no chance. Like, they're like, this is going to be your life for the rest of this is going to be it for the rest of your life. And through, yeah, a lot of faith, a lot of nutrition change, a lot of medication, a lot of surgeries, a lot of operations, a lot of grit and resilience on her end, which is her personality. Doesn't surprise me. Um, she did it, and she's doing it, and yeah, just left some serious scars on her body, and an ability to kind of, with she could function, fully functioning, but like the bone fusions and the way it left her body. But she's doing it, and the byproduct as well is, yeah, three healthy kids, and they're chasing their dreams, and they're doing amazing things. And yeah, so that's been, we look back, and there are moments where, like, there's no way we're getting out of this, and we did.
Mm. If you could take yourself back to those moments and those times at the lowest of lows, I'm sure that you must have felt helpless to a certain degree, and there were some other emotions that were swirling in your mind. Could you go back there and explain to us how you got through those really, really hard moments as Justin, the husband and
Yeah,
the father?
yeah, you're absolutely right. Helpless, uh devastated, sad. um yeah, your mind goes into a lot of swirls, even to the point to where, because I travel a lot for my work, and you just think to yourself, you're a terrible husband, you're a terrible father, like your family needs you now more than ever. However, if I stop working, like, this is my insurance, this is providing all the help financially for us. And if I stop doing that, it's not going to be good. So you're going drive flying. I'm gone for about weeks at a time, and so your mind can play some tricks on you. But yeah, I think it's a combination of faith. We're a very deeply faith family. Also just relentless in looking for answers and curiosity from we would we were open. When you're desperate, you are willing to do anything. And the things that she did, we went to a local beekeeper and he would give us like bees, live bees. And I would like we heard that forgot what it's called, but bee sting therapy. Like I would literally pull out with tweezers live bees and give her multiple bee stings around her body just for a healing agent. Well, it found the hard way that doesn't help, but she did it over and over and over again. We had medicinal leeches coming in. She did everything. We were willing to do crystals. We were like energy healing, you name it. Like if a wizard's like, I can heal it, we'll bring in the wizard, we'll bring in a witch, we'll bring in like whatever we can do to help her. So I've opened my eyes to just the when you're desperate, you're willing to try anything. And so yeah, I think that helped as well. We just constantly ask questions and relentless, willing to do whatever it took. Like no amount of money mattered. We didn't care if it put us hundreds of $1,000s in debt. Help heal my wife. And I think we learned. And then our kids, I learned a lot with our kids. Like they had to become very independent. So at 5, 6, 7 years old, they're making their own dinners, they're making their own lunches, they're washing their own clothes, or essentially doing things that not a lot of 5, 6, 7 year olds are doing, just full on meals. They're cooking at a young age only because they have to. And then that's when they found their passion. My son found his passion for music, and now he's a music producer. And my daughter got into acting at that time. My other daughter got into golf, and she loved to read. And so they as well turned this crazy, horrible situation into an opportunity for them to find what they love, and they were able to figure it out as well.
First of all, that's amazing. I could picture it too. Obviously, I don't know your family, but just the image of a 5, 6, and 7 year old in the kitchen cooking meals. I'd imagine there were some messes and whatnot, but you got through. And there's a saying, I don't know where it came from, but there's no such thing as lack of resources, just lack of resourcefulness. Or maybe another way to say that is where there's a will, there's a way, right? And when your back's up against the wall and you have nowhere else to go, you have to step forward. And you guys certainly stepped up. What comes to mind for me is I'm a big believer that hard things, whether they choose you or you choose them, are incredible opportunities for growth. And yet, not every hard thing helps someone grow. There are people who end up being crushed by the hard things. What do you think it is or was about your family at that time that allowed you to grow through this and not just be crushed by it?
That's a really good question. That reminds me of Admiral James Stockdale in the book with Jim Collins, his first book, The Stockdale Paradox, when he's a prisoner of war and he survived. And the interviewer asked him many years later, how did you survive? And he goes, well, I'll tell you who didn't survive first. And he says, the optimists were the ones who didn't survive. And the interviewer says, what do you mean the optimists didn't survive? He goes, yeah, the optimists. They're the ones who said, we'll be out by Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving would come and go, and they're still in there. We'd be out by Christmas. It'd come and go, and we're in there. We'll be out by New Year's or Easter. And then they ended up dying of a broken heart because nothing ended up happening. And then the interviewer says, well, how are you different? He goes, I was willing to stare and accept the brutal facts. Just understand that I might be here for the rest of my life. I'm getting beat, or we're being tortured. Those are the facts. And I'm at the same time, on the flip side of that coin, I'm going to hold on to the belief that in the end, I'm going to thrive as a result of this. So I'm not just going to survive, but I'm going to thrive as a result of this. And so it ended up coined the term the Stockdale Paradox, which is staring the brutal facts in the face and then having tremendous faith that it's all going to work out in the end. And I think that's one of the biggest differences as well. I think the people who don't get crushed is they have more on the inside. There's more on the inside of them, their mind and their heart, their values, their purpose, than that could counteract the external pressures. Another example, I'm a big fan of analogies. Imagine you and I are scuba diving and you have an unopened aluminum can of, I don't know, just say just it could be anything, like a soda or whatever. And then I have an open can. I have an open, empty can. And so you and I in our scuba gear, we go down deep in the ocean, deeper and deeper and deeper. And we're going to get to a point to where the two cans are going to look starkly different. My can that's empty and open is going to start to implode. All of a sudden, it's going to start to get crushed. And then yours is going to be okay. And the deeper we go, the more mine get crushed, and yours is still going to sustain and maintain its integrity. And then the physics comes in. Then you ask why? Why? What is happening to these cans? And it's physics. The pressure on the outside is more than the pressure on the inside. So mine has zero pressure, it's empty. And so the external forces crush it. Yours, not only does it have stuff on the inside, but it's so much so the pressure pushing on the can from the inside is greater than the external pressure. So it's not affected. I feel that's the same thing with human beings as well. When we don't have values, when we don't have our why, when we don't have a purpose, when we don't have our support system, people in our lives, when you don't have a reason to keep going, the external pressures could just crush us. However, then you look at people in the same situation or a similar situation, you think, wow, why and how were they able to survive such a daunting environment, a vicious, wicked environment? Well, a lot of it has to do with what's invisible, what's on the inside, this innate drive, this resilience, this tenacity. I don't know where, I don't know how, we don't know. It's individual for everybody, but for some reason with the Sua home, when the pressure was on us to get crushed, there was more on the inside than on the outside, and we just helped each other. It was a combination of we're going to keep going. I told you a little bit about my wife's personality before. That's how she is. That's one of the reasons why I married her. I'm so attracted to that. I'm kind of built like that. We've been through adversity before, and yeah. And then as parents, we're like, no. And as a husband and as a father, I'm like, no, not on my watch. Like we're going to. I had a family to lead. I have kids to. I had to set the example for the kids, and so yeah, I think those are all the things that were able to help us not get crushed. But it's like that phrase, just because it looks easy doesn't mean it's not heavy. It was heavy. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of analogies. I'm gonna have to share that one with a few people in my own life, and I hope people listening, were able to resonate with that. And so that was a time in your life that was hard that you didn't choose. On the flip side, when you look back at your life to this point, what's the hardest thing you've ever done on purpose, and why did you do that thing?
That's great. I think choosing to get into this field, like I was describing, I was a teacher, a baseball coach, I was a waiter, I did some MLM. I think it's a pyramid scheme. I don't even know. All I know is we were desperate. It was long, it was back in the early 2000, back when it was like rampant. I was like, okay, like, and then I was like, okay, let me get out of this. but 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 in the midst of all of that, in the midst of how busy things were, I found this passion to help people perform at their best. And I loved it. And I was driven by it. And it's an opportunity to serve in a topic that I love. And I got to a point to where I just quit my job as a full-time teacher. I quit. I literally just said, I'm going off. I had no jobs lined up. I had nothing. We're still what little children. This was before my wife got sick. We had no insurance. We had no 401k. I had nothing lined up. And I just said goodbye. I'm going to go. And I remember people telling me, they're like, you are crazy. Like, what are you doing? And I remember telling people, like, I picked myself. I picked myself. I'm not going to wait for someone to pick me. I'm going to pick myself and I'm going to go. And I don't mind. Some people are risk averse. I'm opposite. Like I don't mind to live dangerously. And if the game is on the line, like I want the ball. And for my family, it just my wife, she's like, all right. all right, babe, like we trust you. Like us four, we trust you. Go, because as an entrepreneur, you eat what you kill, and you just go. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was young in the field, and I just went and ended up trying to build the plane as we were going along, and it ended up doing so. But in an industry where nobody knew what it was, I had to describe what I do. There's no social media back in that day, and so like there's no like really comparisons. Like you're like, "Wait, what is it? Like you're gonna help me with the mental game? Like what are you talking about? Like what is that?" And so that was it for me.
So what you just said reminds me a bit of a story that Inky Johnson tells. Do you know who Inky Johnson is?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so he actually, it was a video of Inky Johnson back when I was in high school. When Inky Johnson, I don't think was well known. That's what sparked a lot of my desire to step into the mindset space, the performance space, and so he tells this story about he wanted to become a speaker, and it was after he had his injury, so he's trying to figure out what he wanted to do, and he tells his wife that he's going to try to become a speaker, and she says go for it. And he drives a crazy number of hours, maybe 7 8 hours, to this high school somewhere in a different state. He goes, he speaks, he comes home, it's midnight, he wakes up his wife and says it went so well, and she said, what'd they give you? And he said, they gave me this coffee mug. And she said, awesome, keep going. And it's like that idea of, in the beginning it's a grind, it's a hustle. You don't even know what you're going to get or if you're going to get anything, and you just go and you do it. And a lot of people find that romantic until they're the ones in that position. What allowed you to keep going in the beginning when it was confusing and hard and unclear?
I I love that story, by the way. That's awesome. And you're absolutely right. Because it's hard. What got hard for me is asking for to get paid for something I would do for free. I loved it.
Mm,
And so it was an autotelic experience, meaning autotelic is auto meaning self, telic meaning goal, where the thing itself is the goal. And
mm,
that's what kept me going, is like me doing the work. That's the goal. That's where I get the satisfaction. And then the money, so that's why it was so hard to ask. And my wife would say, why aren't you charging money? I was like charging just pennies, like really pennies, because I felt so bad. Like, why would I charge for this? Because I love it so much. And so I think that's what it was. That was my fuel, is number one, I loved it. And that's what I think is, well, what's gonna help you be that bulldog mentality is you have to love it. Like I was obsessed, and I think I'm still obsessed. I to this day, I am obsessed. And when I mean obsessed, like I remember a while my kids were like, Daddy, you don't have any like friends. Like you don't, I don't, I work out, I hang out with my family, and I just read books or listen or learn, or I'm on the phone with the clients. That's all I do. And I love it. I cannot get enough of it. And so I think that's what it was for me. I'll speak for myself, is this deep passion, this deep love, because I was getting nothing. I knew early in my career, in order to get good at anything, you need reps. And all I wanted was reps. Again, like I said, I'll flip burgers to provide the money for the family, but I'm if money's going to be a barrier to reps, then I'll do it for free. And but what about the money you should be making? I'll go make it somewhere else. I'll go make it mowing grass or coaching baseball or whatever it may be. But I just got tons of reps early on, and then I started to charge a little bit more, charge a little bit more, charge a little bit more. I got a little bit more competent, a little more. Yeah, but I had a lot of mugs and t-shirts and hats that were given to me as compensation. And for me, it was never about the swag, and it was just about just getting those reps in. And I loved it. But those early days, ooh, it was tough for the family, especially financially, because you got mouths to feed.
yeah. And so that whole journey from back then until now requires an element of endurance, I would say. And this is the Project Endure podcast. So I ask every guest this question. When you hear the word endurance, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think when I hear endure, what I don't hear a lot of times when you hear the word endure, it's like people envision you sitting in the dentist chair and just like taking the pain, like while someone rips out your tooth, like just endure it, just But endure, it really comes down to the purpose behind enduring. And I think part of enduring is the initial question is why? Like that's all, it's always incentives. Like why endure? And then when you find something you love and it's stable, then endure it. People look at you and be like, wow, how do you do it? You're so consistent. You're just like, oh, this is just what I do. Like this is my base. My baseline is consistency. And there is an enduring aspect to it. I think when we think endure, we use it in a context where you're either facing adversity or you're facing struggle. We don't talk about endure. We a lot of times don't talk about it in the context of when things are like great, like things are really going really well. Endure as well is, and now I'm just kind of throwing up on, I'm just thinking out loud, embracing the boredom of consistency. I think that's a powerful principle. What allows longevity in someone's career, in marriage, in family, in anything you do, it's not always sexy. Most of the time, it's not sexy. The great, like 99% of the time, it's not sexy. We don't, I think we live these Instagram lives, these lifestyle too much where we think everything is perfectly curated and it's messy, it's ugly, it's complicated, it's complex, it's ambiguous, and so I think when it comes to the best athletes who have endured long careers, they just embrace the boredom of consistency. They're willing to do those little things consistently over and over and over again, whether they feel like it or not. I think
Mm.
that's a big thing about endure as well. People who endure don't take counsel from their feelings. They People think that wow, they always feel good, or oh, they're so consistent and they wake up at this time or they do this thing for so long. No, they might, most of the time, they might feel terrible. They might not want to do that thing. They're not energized and excited every single day. And so part of enduring is being able to say, keeping promises to yourself and say, I told myself I was going to do this and I'm going to do this. And holding yourself accountable and looking that woman or that man in the mirror and say, hey, you said you're going to do it. So go and do it. And then I think part of enduring as well is having that self compassion with yourself, because when you do mess up and when you do fail, that might derail people. They say, oh, okay. They throw their hands up and they're like, well, I guess this isn't for me. Where the people who have self compassion and learn from failure, they're able to say, okay, they understand that making new mistakes is making progress in disguise. And so
Mm.
they might make this, they're going to make mistakes, but as long as they're making new ones, they know that they're making progress. They're not necessarily making the same mistake over and over and over again. But yeah, those are all different elements of enduring, um, and why people endure, in my opinion.
Such a great response and thought process, and it jogged a few things for me. One of them is a quote that I've loved for a few years now from John Wellborn, who said, training is a lot like moving a big pile of dirt. Some days you have a shovel, some days you have a spoon, but as long as you're moving dirt, you're headed in the right direction.
Mm.
And it's become a thing in my life where I'll wake up. I have a metal spoon pinned to a cork board behind my desk. And I wake up and it's either a shovel morning or a spoon morning, but I'll move the dirt either way. And the second part is, and this is in no way, shape, or form impressive in my mind, but I have a run streak of 962 days and counting of at least a mile a day. And there are two rules. If I want to do it, I get to do it. And if I don't want to do it, I have to do it. And I've run with a fever. I've run in the Philadelphia airport. I've run in pretty much every condition I can think of. And it feels so good. It doesn't always feel good in the moment, but to look back and know that you have that stack of proof of showing up and being consistent, it's changed my life in many ways. And, that's where your podcast comes back into play in my mind, because I can imagine there are plenty of weeks and months where it would just be so much easier to say, you know what, I'm putting the podcast on pause for a while and I'll come back to it someday. But as far as I can tell, you show up and it looks like you're moving the dirt as well.
I love that quote. That's incredible. I'm going to share that. I'm going to share that as well. And that's outstanding. And that is such a good point. As long as they're moving dirt, just move it. Could be a shovel, could be a spoon. Congrats on that. That's amazing. That the streak. See that's
Thank
what it
you.
looks like. That's what it looks like. And people, it's not anything crazy. It's just like you're keeping your promise to yourself, and you're just doing it. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, as we wind this down, Justin, I always ask each guest the same question. And in a way, I think that this whole episode has been an answer to that question, but I'll ask it anyway. I'll let you give a response. And then I would love for you to share where people can find you. There are people listening to this all over the world who are going through hard things. And some of those people might just feel stuck. It's a dark time and they don't know where to go or what to do, and you just get to, package a message and speak to them right now, what would you say to those people who are really going through it?
I would share a story. About 5 years ago, I'm on a plane and I fly a lot with my job. And notable experience on the flight where we were experiencing tremendous turbulence, like uncharacteristic turbulence that I usually don't care about turbulence. This one got me going a little bit. I'm like, okay, this is scary. What was interesting about this flight is to my right was a pilot in his uniform, and he's one of those. He wasn't flying the plane, but he was going to his next destination. And I thought this is a great opportunity for me to learn about turbulence for my own peace of mind. And so I noticed that he was reading a magazine, and we're bouncing all over the place, and people are making audible noises like screaming and are worried, and you hear panic in the plane. And he's reading the magazine, and he's just calm, cool, and collected. And I try to gather my control of my emotions as well, but deep down I'm nervous as well. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" He goes, "Yeah, sure." I said, "Can you talk to me about turbulence?" And from a pilot's perspective, he goes, "Oh yeah." He goes, "As a pilot, sometimes you can see turbulence coming from miles away, and so you avoid it. Other times you can avoid the turbulence and it just hits you." And he goes, "But one thing people don't understand is that it actually feels a lot worse than it really is." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, do you see how we're dropping?" He goes, "It feels like we're dropping 50 feet or 100 feet. We're actually not dropping that much. We're just kind of going up and down, and it's kind of like little dips and little rises, but it feels a lot worse than it really is." And he goes, if I can get on the microphone and tell everybody one thing, I would tell them this, that planes are built for turbulence. They're built for this. You're not going to be a crash because of turbulence. It's built for this. And number two, the remedy to turbulence as a pilot is to just keep flying. And to anyone listening to this who's going through something very difficult, I would say the same two things that the pilot said to me. Remember that you were built for this. And what evidence do you have that you're built for this? Look back into your life and look at all of the turbulence in your life that you've achieved up to this point. So all of the things that you've overcome. You're not just a byproduct of the things you've achieved, you're a byproduct of the things you've overcome. You've overcome incredible odds already, hardships that you did not want to end, but you look back, you're like, oh, I did it. Go back and find out, ask yourself, like, learn from that. How did I do that? What were my values? Like, you're a very strong person, so you're built for this. And then number two, just keep flying. As my good friend Joe Rinaldi said, he goes, just keep moving dirt. Just keep moving dirt. And so that's what I'd say to that person.
Oh, so good. And that helps because I'm not a fan of turbulence either. And so next time I'll remember it's all okay.
Yeah.
Now, Justin, if people want to thank you for this conversation, just want to follow you, want to connect, where's the best place for people to do that?
Any social media, Justin Sua, JustinSua, on Instagram or Twitter, and you can find me on LinkedIn. But and as you know, Joe, I'll do my best to respond if you do reach out. They do get get backed up sometimes, but yeah, you can find me. You can find me there.
Well, Justin, I appreciate this conversation so much, and I appreciate you and everything that you do, the energy that you bring to this world more than you know. So thank you for this. I can't wait to keep watching you grow, and I know that people appreciate it as well.
Thanks so much, Joe. Appreciate you.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.